Well, big up, people in the house. We are live and we are ready to go. This is Liberal 12th Man, and we are really psyched about this episode because, look, it's another day beyond the tumultuous season that has come to an end. So we are able to talk about things maybe in a sensible realm. I saw some good omens about some of the content that we're putting together here on this channel. So, got quite a bit of views on these last couple of shows. So appreciate everyone that's been tuning in. Hope that if you're new to the channel that you continue to do so, and join this, I think, growing community, and I think one of the best communities in our Liverpool Red universe, because some of these people are absolutely kind and very centered in giving true, I think, Liverpool Red energy back to you. So definitely join the family here, and hopefully you continue to pass on the sentiment to others to join here as well. So big up to everyone. Shout out to Lee WizKid, Red Armchair supporter, and High Lord, definite OGs in the house. And might be one of the strangest endings to a Liverpool season we've experienced in years. I understand that, because usually when Liverpool seasons end, there's clarity. There's like some semblance of us understanding what it is that we want to do or what we have to accomplish in the upcoming season. But there's so many things on this list that are ridiculous to name all at once. It's a funny circumstances, because this season, it feels like we've had some emotional confusion, I guess you'd call it, a season where expectations were enormous on this team. I saw something where they had the pundits giving out big up by the way, Emery, shout out to Emery, definitely stay hydrated. I was after the game, I was dehydrated. I could not even finish. I had to do a quick 30-minute episode and make up for it on that following day. But shout out to Emery. But like I was saying, it's like there was some Baba Black Sheep. I got you to the lone sheep. Big up. I saw this thing where they showed the pundits predictions and everything else, and not many people had picked Arsenal to win the league, and most had picked either us to win the league or even Manchester City to win the league, and we all know how that ended up. This is a season where Liverpool spent massive money. We all know that. It was a season where we were supposed to be defending a Premier League title, which it didn't seem like we were. It seemed like we were still on holiday for most of the season. We brought in superstar signings. We had somehow, some way, we had ended up with a 5th place finish. That was a gift, 60 points, which is, again, like I said, is a massive underselling of how poor the season was. And I think how this season has been marked by the normal cast of top teams dropping down in stature, and then mid-table teams lifting up in stature to create more parity in the league. So we've had some embarrassing cup exits. I think I would say we should have done better in the League Cup. We should have done better in even the FA Cup. Emotional farewells have been all part of it. And all the same, a fan base increasingly divided over the future of not only this club, but the management, meaning the manager or even the upper management as well. And this was just a disappointing season. Let's just be honest. This felt like a warning sign. A flare had been shot up, and you could even go as far as to say, tonight we're going to try to do our best in breaking it all down. We're going to talk about the failures, maybe some of the few positives. The transfer chaos. We'll talk about the Salah departure, obviously, the Robbo departure, the preseason reset, the future stars, the structural issues. I said I was going to do my best to try to do the checklist of things to try to like get a firm wrap over what is going on with our team. Let's just be honest. The growing emotional disconnect between supporters and the current era under Arne Slot is enormous. Whether people want to admit it or not, Liverpool Football Club is entering one of the most important summers in modern club history. So let's get into it. I'll start with a segment here that I wanted to do, which is called just around the league, basically. I wanted to go around the league and that bring up some of the latest Liverpool stories, also some other stories from other teams that might particularly relate to Liverpool or maybe even just relate to the Premier League in general. But the rebuild has already started, obviously. We're moving very fast into this behind-the-scenes breakdown. And why I say it's very fast and furious is because the biggest story remains Mohamed Salah. Mohamed Salah is now officially searching for his next club after playing his final game for Liverpool Football Club in 9 years, 442 appearances, 257 goals. One of the greatest players this club has ever seen. And right now, for the football world, we are all waiting to see what happens next because despite the fact of him not being a Liverpool Red, I myself personally am interested to see where he goes. I'm interested to see if he chooses another Premier League team. I'm interested to see if he chooses a team in Europe. Maybe he goes to Saudi Arabia. Maybe he comes to America. Well, another elite club, Champions League club, tried to make one final push and bring in maybe an all-time legend in Mohamed Salah. Salah himself told beIN Sports he's still assessing things and likely won't make a decision until after the World Cup, which is, I think, interesting because I think he probably knows where he wants to go. I think he probably understands and sees where his best options to continue playing elite football and possibly get Champions League football and continue to be someone that can steer clear of impacting his legacy negatively. I don't know where you guys think. You can definitely tell me in the chat where you guys think he's going to end up. But it's going to be an interesting place to and signal as to where and what happens. I heard that Juventus might be one of the destinations. I don't think that's a bad choice. I don't know if it goes up against him and maybe his Roma connections, but I know Juventus has their new coach has put out there that they're very interested in bringing in a player of Mohamed Salah's caliber, and also I think it would be unique to have Juventus bring back a player like Mohamed Salah simply because they somewhat lack the Italy has certainly somewhat lacked the ability to call out as being one of the top leagues in Europe, and star power is very limited. There's very limited teams that can offer salaries that could be accountable to what the big name stars like Salah demand. So it'll be very interesting to see if Juventus can pull off that deal. But honestly, it sounds like Salah still is emotionally processing the end of this Liverpool chapter. All the noise around contracts and negotiations has probably made him start to say, look, he's got a World Cup to really focus on. He's going to have obviously very, very heightened responsibilities of leadership roles for his Egyptian team. So, This should be interesting. But what's even equally interesting is now the focus turns to who do we replace this legend with. And according to Fabrizio Romano, Liverpool's two primary targets are, for Salah's replacement that is, are either Bradley Barcola or Jan Diomande. And I think one or two, depending on which way Jan Diomande goes, obviously, is going to be the determining of whether Barcola even gets involved in the conversation. Because Barcola's situation at PSG is, I loosely say, fascinating, because despite he's got obvious talent, I'm not disputing that. I don't think of him as some generic or player, and I don't think of him as a world-class player. But it is interesting. Red Armchair supporter, you're absolutely right. It's interesting that Fabrizio would put out something like this, where he's talking about two players that play on different sides of the pitch. Now, Jan Diomande can play left and right center, left and right, and possibly be able to be interchangeable. I don't know if Barcola is as interchangeable as Diomande, but I think because Barcola has less of a guaranteed position or place under Luis Enrique and PSG, I think Barcola has started to look beyond PSG and started looking more towards a place where he could have a future. Now, if Salah was still here, then this wouldn't be the place. It would be an eventual future, but it wouldn't be the immediate future. So meanwhile, you have Diomande, who's exploded at RB Leipzig this season, and I mean has really, really lit the league on fire with his performances and his play, and is now viewed internally as one of Europe's most exciting young attacking players. And what's problematic about that is that means the price is only going to go up. Liverpool clearly wants to bring back some explosiveness to our wings. We want directness. We want transition threat. And one thing this team lacked this season, I think, was throughout the huge stretches of the season year, was fear factor. Someone that you knew could get beyond those fullbacks. Now, the interesting layer is that PSG are reportedly wanting to bring in Diomande as well. And Liverpool could end up in a bidding war, which is what it's sounding like it's going to be and what is sounding like it already has become. I'll go as far as to say that I've read reports saying that we're already at the 86 or 87 million pound evaluation has already ballooned to 100 million pounds. So these stories might become heavily connected throughout the summer of whether Diomande actually opens the door for Barcola to leave Paris or not. But it's one of those things. Like I'm going to ask the chat, and if you're watching on the replay, please do tell us in the comment section your opinion. And I am going to have an absolute episode. I'll probably do it later on this week, but I am going to break down more thoroughly the replacement options that we have of Barcola, of Diomande, maybe even Gordon. I know I said it out loud and it hurts. It made me kind of like almost choke. But yes, even Gordon, or there are some other names that have been thrown out there as possible replacements, maybe like a Bowen or something. But tell me in the chat and tell me in the comment section, again, if you're watching this on replay, out of Barcola and Diomande, which player, and key on these words, by the way, which player actually fits Liverpool's next era better? Not who's the better player, not who you think is the better player or who you like. Tell me who you think fits Liverpool and our next chapter that we're trying to build better? I'd be very interested to hear that, because often you hear people say, "Oh, I like the player, but he doesn't fit," or I think the player is a fit, but I don't really like the player, and that makes a difference. Shout out to Edward, by the way. Big up. I didn't get the chance to say hello to you. Hope that you're well. Let me see what you guys are saying. Hyler said, Diamande isn't left-footed, just so you know. However, the majority of his goals and assists this season have come from his left side, because Leipzig have two left wings other than Diamande. He's right. Or he meant Diamande is playing on the right. Red Armchair supporter said Diamande is the better fit. Hyler said Diamande is the better fit. Edward says he wants someone with more experience to play on the right. That's a good point, Edward. I understand what you're saying. Maybe you'd like Bowen. Bowen has experience, and he's now going to probably be someone that's going to warrant West Ham in cashing in on his interest from other teams as well. Edward says he likes Barcola to come play on the left. All right. If that's the case too, Edward, and if some of you agree with Edward's point about bringing in Barcola to play on the left side, if that's the case, do you think? Because that would mean either, I know most of you would say, "Oh, just get rid of Cody Gakpo." That's not going to happen, people. Cody Gakpo will be a part of this team next season. I'm not an ITK, but that is something I believe will occur, especially since this coach highly and heavily rates the player. I think he would go to bat for Cody Gakpo. Definitely, but you can tell me if you do agree with bringing in Barcola. Do you think that will possibly mess up or somewhat slow the process of Rio? Do you then move Rio on to a loan deal? Do you because Rio's not playing on the right side? He can play, but it's very, very loose to put him on the right side. He's more of a left winger than a right winger. We all again know that Cody Gakpo is very heavily rated, and he's going to get preference over Rio to stay as a option, if not a first teamer, if certainly a first choice in the first team, certainly as a squad player on the left side. If that's the case, and you're to bring in Barcola, and you're to bring in and you're to have Cody Gakpo, and you now have Rio, you might now have an obstacle in Rio's development in becoming that full-time left wing option. Just thoughts. I'd like to see if you have those same concerns, or if that's something that you don't think is a concern of your own. But we all know replacing Salah isn't about just goals. We all know it's about replacing pressure, intensity, mentality, leadership, attacking gravity. But speaking of the transfer movement, let's talk about our center half. Now, that's an important position on this team. We all know that. But we would all like to have some type of clarity on Ibu. I just saw Hyler speaking on that too. Shout out Beans on Toast. Shout out to you. Ibu's future is reportedly expected to be decided on imminently. Now, Ben Jacobs made a report about this, saying that Liverpool should soon know whether Konaté's going to remain part of the project going forward. Ben Jacobs is an ITK. Um, I think this situation feels like a massive situation for all of us because we'd like to have some clarity as to what are we doing with our center halves. We've seen ourselves buying some very young and promising center halves, but none of which I would say are ready for prime time action to be the consistent, partner to a Virgil van Dijk in the next season. And I'd go as far as to say, too, Liverpool cannot afford another summer entering uncertainty at center back. I will give it to Ibu that this season was an exceptional season, not for his play, but primarily for his availability. One of the few things I ever really had negative towards Ibu, and it's negative. It can be considered negative, but it's more so constructive criticism of Ibu, is his ability to not be available. During that Jurgen Klopp years, he was often injured, and there was a little bit of uncertainty as to whether he would continue to be our option at center half. But you got to look at it as this is and could be Virgil van Dijk's last season with Liverpool. And if that's the case, then that means that we are looking at the heir apparent to be shown in this scenario. And that's especially with Joe Gomez constantly linked away. Konaté leaves. All of a sudden, we have a massive gap in center half. It would mean that we would have to figure out keeping Gomez, who has been even more injury prone than Konaté. And if they both were to go, or if one of them were to go, suddenly Liverpool's defense rebuild becomes dramatically bigger than possibly even our offense or our midfield. And that's where it's scary about, again, I said this summer's going to be one of the biggest summers that we've seen in a long time. And then you can even go to the midfield, like I mentioned earlier, and relate it to possibly Curtis Jones, the Scouser in the team, one of the few Scousers that remains in this team. Shout out to Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones may have quietly dropped one of the biggest hints about his future. And that is, after the Brentford game, Curtis Jones spoke openly about being excited for next season and putting everything behind us. Now, the key word is us. Not putting everything behind him and moving on, not saying putting it behind the team and moving on and separating himself maybe from the team concept. He said us. It sounded like someone expecting to remain part of Liverpool's plans, and I hope that's the case. We've seen the versatility that Curtis Jones brings. I'm not saying I want to see him as a right back, not at all. I want to see him in the midfield, and I want to see him helping us in the midfield with his pressing ability and his ability to play the ball, control and dribble. But despite some heavy Serie A links, despite Inter Milan rumors, despite ongoing debate about his long-term role, Curtis Jones still certainly, and I think clearly, belongs to be mentioned as an option in our Liverpool team. I think he exudes some of the best qualities of a Liverpool player. I think he obviously understands the gravity and the weight of what football in the city means and what this team means to this fan base. And that is important. He has always wanted to be a influential player. He's always wanted to be a leader amongst his teammates. He certainly has done that when he was on the youth academy side, and now that he's grown into this heightened role with our team, I think this is his opportunity to become part of this new leadership group, this part of this new leadership effort in this team. Now it's going to be interesting because we've seen pushbacks between him and Slot. Again, I don't want to keep saying all these things when it comes to, oh, but what about Slot? But what about Slot? But what about Slot? I want to make it about players and a system and an identity that our team continues to develop and build towards and refortify, because we already have an identity. I don't like the identity that we're starting to gravitate towards, but I would like to see us refortify and get back to basics. We've heard that term numerous times throughout this entire season. We got to get back to basics. Got to get back to basics. And it seems like throughout this entire season, we've seen 50 different structural changes, whether because of injuries or whether just because of pure arrogance. And it's been difficult to really get a grasp as to what this team is trying to do. I know this fan base remains incredibly divided on whether Curtis Jones actually is a valuable squad player. I think he is. Some people don't. Some people never have. Is he an unrealized talent? I think he is. Some people don't. Some people never have. Now, interestingly enough, there is another story that's developing around Europe's, I'd say, one of Europe's top center forwards, Julian Alvarez. Now, I've been very vocal about the fact that I would like to see Julian Alvarez be a part of this team. I was very, very happy to hear that we were going after him when he was at Manchester City before he made his move to Spain. I think that he is the kind of forward that we could not only utilize, but actually we could have absolutely, even more so, and I'll say this outward and with all due respect to Ekitike, to Isak, I think that Julian Alvarez would have been more of a natural fit for this team than both of them. Not because they're not good players, but I say because the role that Julian Alvarez could and can play is more conducive to being similar to Bobby Firmino, for instance, in a false nine role. Now, you could argue whether Bobby was better at dribbling or link-up play and the likes, but I still think that Julian Alvarez has some immense, incredible talent. And Diego Simeone has given a very strange answer when he was asked about whether Atletico's defeat to Villarreal, when asked whether Alvarez's future was going to be with the club, he basically implied the player already knows what decision he's making. Now, naturally, Liverpool supporters immediately started connecting the dots, I think, and everything else. And, stylistically, again, I think he's built for Anfield. I think he's a relentless runner. I think he's aggressive presser. I think he's an elite. He has elite play involved in his actions, like as in the movement he makes, the big game mentality he has. Everything supports emotionally that he could be an absolute gem of a find And we've already done some of the work and legwork in bringing or getting him interested in the project, getting him interested in understanding of what we were going to be doing. But I think hopefully he doesn't do what is being reported that he might do, and that is join Arsenal. I would not like to see that. So, there is things going on elsewhere where Robbo's future has suddenly become one of the more bizarre stories of the summer. And what I mean by that is because Ben Jacobs reports that Robbo already has an agreement in place with Tottenham, but I've also seen Fabrizio Romano report Juventus have also made a move for Robbo. Now, why I say it is interesting, in my opinion, is because I get it. It feels surreal that Robbo's leaving Liverpool, and it's kind of weird talking about Salah and Robbo and the likes. But why I think is very interesting is Juventus is that I spoke about how Juventus was maybe interested in going for Salah. Now, if they were to go for Salah and Robbo, I think that would be a very interesting and interesting move. And I think that maybe the two players go because they have history and they would be able to go and be a part of a team and be a part of another team together. Would be something that they'd be interested in. It is wild to be speaking on those terms, but it is what it is. As long as they don't get Alisson, I feel you on that. As long as they don't get Ali, I have a story about Ali coming up, but I was going to talk about Joe Gomez before because I love Joey G. I think he's a fantastic player, fantastic person, fantastic human being. But there is talk that there is a particular team that is very, very keen on bringing Joe to their team. And I heard the name and I said to myself, oh no, be weary of this one, Joey. Be very, very weary of this. Now, I don't know if you guys have heard this rumor or not, but apparently Villa are reportedly among the clubs interested in the defender. This is because a genuinely difficult decision for Liverpool has been made, by letting legends leave. And now we're letting maybe, club icons leave in being Joey G. Joe Gomez remains incredibly useful due to his versatility, but he has 1 year left on his contract. Most likely, we are not giving him an extension. This may be Liverpool's, I would say, maybe their final realistic opportunity to cash in on some type of deal for Joe. And I would even go as far as to say, if Liverpool truly believe in Leone and Jacquet, they are going to have to figure out a way to make room for those players to get playing time. It's a difficult decision emotionally, I think. I think it's more difficult than you think, considering that Joey G is one of the last remaining players from an era that came even before Klopp. And that's why it's so difficult. To me, at least, it's difficult. Um, One smaller story that could be important long term is Liverpool are reportedly set to sign highly rated center back from Celtic, Jikimi. Now, he's a young defender known for being extremely comfortable on the ball and capable of stepping into the midfield. Um, it might tell you what the type of player profile we are starting to go with or go for when it comes to center halves. More of, despite the fact of some of us liking the more defensive minded, center halves that can get stuck in on tackles and be able to defend and be able to have pace enough to keep with center forwards. We are now going for more of players that have technical ability, more mobile, more build-up specialists, I guess you could say. And that recruitment trend is being increasingly obvious, I would go as far as to say, with that selection of this Celtic player. And I'm going to have to do a little bit more research on the player. Despite the fact that he does play for Celtic, I would have to do a little more research because I don't watch as much. I don't watch that much Celtic football, to be honest with you. But I will try to do my research and do my homework as well when it comes to the player. Finally, one story before we get into all the segments of the show. Really, the Liverpool centered segments. I was going to talk about the 115 team. This is probably a story that's going to frustrate some Liverpool supporters, but apparently Manchester City are reportedly leading the race for Nottingham Forest midfielder Elliot Anderson. Elliot Anderson has been for some in our fan base a player that they would like to go for. I think he is massively overvalued. I think his valuation is overhyped. He's a good player, not disputing that at all. But what I am saying is I don't think that the price that is being circulated with this player is one that is rightfully so. It's more like market value and inflation with the fact that he's a Premier League player. And the fact that he's a Forest player makes it even worse because their ownership tends to be a team that goes for only top dollar and they play very much hardball. But he would be a midfielder that Liverpool supporters probably would have loved to see get brought to this team so that we can maybe transition out of a 4-2-3-1. Excuse me. Maybe go to a single six. Maybe have 2 8s. It could be a case. Or maybe some other formation that brings about some more added reliance in our midfield of being returned to the level that we want to see them be brought to. He's got intensity, he's got energy, he's got technical security. But I will say this. Speaking of the 115 team, there has been reports that Colo Torre and our own Judas, Mr. Pep Linders, are apparently leaving Manchester City alongside several of Pep's staff members. It adds another interesting layer to the growing instability around, obviously, some of these elite teams, because there's going to be some really good assistant coaches on the market. Liverpool are not the only giant entering uncertainty, and that would mean Manchester City are going to be right there with us. And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens, but we can only wish the best to Mr. Linders and whichever direction he decides to go. I don't think it's going to be back to a Liverpool team, to be honest with you. But maybe some of you would want to have him back. Maybe you want to. I personally think he's made his bed and he's got to lie in it. But maybe some of you would like to have him back. Not as a head coach. I'm not going as that. I'm not going that far. But you can argue that Pep Linders, despite the fact of what he's brought, he did bring a resurgence back to Manchester City. You can argue what you will, but you know, Pep Linders was influential in bringing players like Lucho to Liverpool. He was influential in developing or the development of Trent Alexander-Arnold. He was influential in a lot of different aspects of good things when it comes to player development and just player selection. So maybe not. I'm not putting up a poll for it. I'm just asking. Maybe you think so, maybe don't. You can tell me in the comments if you're not going to tell me now, but all the same. Let's get right into this next segment, which is alarm bells are blaring, and that's what I'm calling it, at least, because Liverpool's obviously our season became a disaster pretty much from the very beginning of the season. Despite the fact that we were winning games, we were winning them by the skin of our teeth, and the scary part is how quickly it unraveled. Obviously, the start of the campaign where we had sky-high expectations. We were the Premier League champions, defending champions. Florian Wirtz had just arrived. Alexander Isak was on his way. Squad looked loaded with talent, and yet somehow, some way, everything drifted backwards. The title defense never truly got going. The Champions League campaign lacked authority. The domestic cup exits, like I said, were embarrassing. Let's just be honest, they were. I would even go as far as, what really symbolized what this season was going to be, because I thought preseason was a good preseason. We saw some players really start to step up. Harvey Elliott was possibly one of our best players in the preseason. He looked promising. He looked like he was going to be ready to make contributions on a very heightened level, maybe even with the ability to start in some of these games. And then we got to that Community Shield game. And I think that Community Shield game set the tone for this season. Now, most people will say it's not a good omen to win the Community Shield. I get that. But what I am saying is that the way we played in the Community Shield against a Crystal Palace was very symbolic. Very symbolic. And by the end, I think most of us are just happy the season's over. That's how bad the season has been. Let me see. I have a question for me. Would you offer Harvey Elliott plus cash for Bowen? Okay. Okay, sorry about that. My simple answer to that is maybe. And what I mean by maybe is this: I'm not trying to hedge my bets. What I'm trying to say is there is another deal. I'm going to speak about it later on. And I had this actually in a later on segment, but I can give, without giving too much context away, if the deal that I would want to do first didn't transpire, then yes, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea, but I don't know if Harvey goes for that because I don't think Harvey's going to go for a team. I think Harvey wants to play Premier League football. I think he thinks he's good enough for Premier League football. And I also think that if it's not Premier League football, then it should be um, a team like a Bundesliga team, or maybe even an Italian team, or I don't know how well he'd do in France, but like as in, a team that more correlates to his skill sets. Um, so I have another team in mind that I think we could possibly move him on to. And he would most likely get an opportunity to play. But like I said, when I heard that Villa was offering the money for Joe Gomez, I was like, Joey, don't do it, bro. My Reds brother, do not do it. I do not trust Villa as far as you can throw them. Um, but yeah, I would look at it that way. And you'll figure out who it is. I'm sure some of you might already know the team I'm going to suggest as well already. But back to what I was saying. Um, don't even think about it. Exactly, Red Armchair supporter. Don't even think about it. Bon Villa. Um, the thing about this season was that this wasn't even a mid-table squad overachieving and regressing. This was an elite team that just won Premier League title, and we're playing mid-table football. We looked exhausted by February. We looked physically disconnected by March. We looked tactically confused by April. I think if you get my drift, that is concerning. It's concerning because elite teams should not drop the level that we did, certainly on a constant decline. I remember when we had that little bit of a unbeaten streak, and it was the most tongue-in-cheek style, uh, backhanded slap compliment I've ever seen. And this coach rode that forever. He was all about it. But it was pathetic. There are some major, major deep cracks that existed in our reported success. And it felt like there was some real tactical confusion. Like I said, my personal opinion was I thought it was poor squad balance. This coach does not know man management if it showed up to his front door. There is physical drop off. There's been psychological fragility, and that's all happening at once. All happening at once. Now, despite all that, you could say the player I said would be our MVP last season, preseason, the player I said that would be our best player was Dominik Szoboszlai. I got a lot of I got a lot of flack. I got people calling me delusional for thinking that, especially considering the year he'd just come off of. There were people in our fan base that wanted him gone. I remember there were people in our fan base that were willing to drive him to the airport. But this player that now wears our number 8 kit could have been, I think there isn't much of a debate that he was solely one of the few shining lights of the season. At times, he was the only one that really, truly carried this team. And genuinely, Um, no, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go as far as to say what I was about to say. I'm not going to go as far as to say that, but he was definitely bringing back some beliefs. He's definitely doing that. One second, one second. Open up my phone here. Um, 25 goal involvements. He has some big goals, and I mean very big goals. The goal against Arsenal was possibly the goal of the year. Relentless running, obviously, that's been consistent with him for his entire stay with us. But I mean relentless running in respect. I know that there's some content creators out there, even I'm not many pundits, but content creators especially, that always like try to make that a running pun about how he's just no pun intended, about how he's just all run, 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 and that's all he can do is run. And why is he getting plaudits for being someone that can just run a lot? It's because if you look at our stats, most teams outran us. So for us to say that there was someone out there that was actually putting the effort and putting the intensity into our game, that's important. He brought leadership and he brought some very, very consistent technical qualities to the pitch. And I would say, perhaps most importantly, he looked emotionally connected to the badge, like as in he looked like it meant something. There were times when maybe you questioned it, and sometimes, guess what? So did I. But he definitely looked connected to the badge when it mattered. When the rest of the team looked mentally drained and some even maybe letting go, there were games where Dom genuinely looked angry at the standards around him. And I think Liverpool needs that in a player. Too many performances this season felt emotionally passive. We looked emotionally. Well, I think that we resembled our coach on that pitch. Disconnected, passive, conservative, just boring. And leadership isn't always about armbands. Let me repeat that. It's leadership on this team is not always about who's wearing the armband. Sometimes leadership is simply refusing to mentally quit, and that alone can emulate the type of leadership you need on the pitch. Big up to AR. Big up AR. But you're talking about leadership. And you got to talk about Mohamed Salah, one of the biggest names, one of the biggest leaders, and now a player that is going to create a void that we must figure out. We move into the biggest story of the summer, and that is how do you replace a legend in real time? And I think that this could be the hardest or most difficult rebuild task, because people are going to automatically. I'm going to say it like this. I look at it like the way that most people looked at Lucho when Mane left the team. Mane was undoubtedly a legend. Mane was undoubtedly an unsung hero at times because of his ability to not only play on levels like a Salah offensively, it was also because Mane was a relentless presser, a incredible ball magician, and he was able to defend, track back, do everything. And Lucho came in, and he was not Mane. Never was going to be. But yet, people rated him aggressively because he wasn't Mane, and overlooked some of the features and certainly some of the intangibles he brought that maybe even Mane didn't have. Or maybe Mane had them, but not necessarily to the level that Lucho had them at. We're going to have that circumstances of always being now, well, he's not Salah. Oh, well, he's not, Mohamed Salah was this on our right wing. Or Salah was that on our right wing. It's difficult. Reliability, leadership, the fear factor that is Salah, the amount of attention that Salah caused teams to draw towards him, the elite mentality that he brought, the professionalism, the availability. The availability is ridiculous too, by the way. The emotional identity, 257 goals for this team. He is in the top 10 of all-time goal scorers for this team. And now we have to figure out, with Robbo going, with Salah gone, Konaté's future is uncertain. Ali still has a question mark. Not a definitive question mark, but certainly a question mark next to his name. There's now being pushes by our fan base for McAllister to leave. Dominik Szoboszlai has a contract that he still needs to get worked out that hasn't been finalized, and it's probably because of his exceptional year this year that he hasn't really gotten in on a figure that Liverpool are comfortable giving him. It's going to be difficult to understand where and what number they settle on. I guess, if anything, we're very fortunate that he doesn't have a World Cup to go to, because if he had a World Cup to go to, that would just add more to his bargaining power. But and I say that for all due respect, and not that I don't want him to be in the World Cup, but more so just in the sense of from a bargaining perspective. But this generally feels like an era that is ending, and a new one that we must figure out quickly if we are to recognize the fact that we're about to go into a Premier League, without Pep Guardiola as a coach at Manchester City. We're going to go into a year where mid-80s can win you a title. And that has got to be a very big pushing and selling point to the guys that make the big decisions on the prices we spend and the prices we pay these players. We've got to figure out what it is and who we're going to bring in. And that depends on, I get it, Barcola, Diamane, to very unbelievable talents, to very different risks associated to both of them. Barcola gives you elite technical quality and Champions League experience. Diamane gives you raw explosiveness, superstar upside, young, very, very young player. Clearly, we are divided. I wouldn't say clearly we're divided. The chat said, arguably, without a doubt, that they would all go for Diamande. But there are some that would go for Barcola simply because he's played on an elite team. And what's also fascinating is the PSG angle, which is because if PSG land Diamande, that potentially opens the door for Barcola. And guess what? I'm going to say this openly. If Diamande goes to PSG, Barcola is not my top target on that team. He's just not. But all the same, Liverpool's rebuild may partially depend on which domino falls in Europe first. And that's where we're at. I want to be proactive rather than reactive, and that's why I am stressing. I have an op-ed that I'm writing currently. I'm still trying to get the ending portions of it done, but you're going to hear something about our recruitment team and how I feel about it. Uh, you're definitely going to hear about that because it is a case where something needs to be said. But navigating market opportunities rather than fully controlling them is what we have to figure out how we're going to how we're going to improve on those things. And I think again, I'm not trying to replace Salah like for like. I'm trying to bring in a player that's going to bring in qualities that are going to accent Isak. They're going to accent the eventual return of Ekitike, going to accent eventually maybe a Jaden Dance. They're going to accent, excuse me, that are going to accent, this is totally pie in the sky, Julian Alvarez, who's not coming to our team, but still a player like that, as it's going to access our center forward. And that's what we need. Our recruitment doesn't exactly inspire full confidence right now. That's how I would look at it. Wirtz struggled badly. I think Wirtz struggled badly physically, not technically, but physically to adapt to the league. I thought that Isak's injuries and inconsistencies were abominable. I understand that the injury that he was sustained was not a injury that had to do with a non-impact injury, but all the same, I thought it was absolutely abominable. His availability that was very much connected to some muscle injuries that he sustained early on when he had to catch up with his progress and catch up with his fitness to even be a part of the team. Then when he finally is a part of the team, he has struggles in staying a part of the team. There were times when I saw him knackered on the pitch trying to catch air. Isak set aside that. You had Frimpong, who never was a consistent player as to where we were going to play him. I put that on the coach, to be honest with you. And again, I get that the versatility and the Dutch style is to have a jack of all trades style approach to things. You should be able to play this player or that player, this position, that position. But I wanted to see him as a right wing back and him to thrive as a right wing back and then make it happen, or the right back role, whatever. Did not happen. Now we're still wondering, are we going to have to wait for Connor Bradley to get back to health? A player that has his own injury problems. We're going to have to see Frimpong, who all of a sudden has picked up injury problems. You had Kirkez, who showed flashes, but let's be honest, he was inconsistent in the very beginning. He grew into the player that he is right now, and I'm glad to see it. I was very critical of him in the beginning of the season, and I've also been very supportive of him during his rise, and I've also been very supportive of the sense of saying, or being applaudatory to him because he has played well. But at the end of the season, he wasn't even available. So suddenly Liverpool were entering another stage of a rebuild when we were told that last season was supposed to be the transition. And now we're being told that this season is going to be the rebuild and the transition. For a coach that has 1 year left on this deal, and for a coach that I'd say easily the majority of fans do not believe in. I think supporters are exhausted. I think we're exhausted by this rebuild BS language. We're exhausted by this BS transition language. We're exhausted by promises about the next cycle and wait until next year. That's not elite football status. We are not Arsenal. Maybe that is a stray shot at the current Premier League title holders, but we are not. Maybe next year, we want to be feared again. We want it now, and we are not going to accept for be patient. So, I already spoke about Joey and the Villa role or the Villa possibility. I'd like to ask you in the chat, since there is a good number of you in the chat now. If you're on X too, by the way, please do. You can put in your comment in the send, and when you send the comment, I'll see it. I'll read it out or I'll include it so that people can, as long as it's a good comment, I'll read it out to those in YouTube world and also read it out to those in the X world, since I don't think that if you put a comment in, it doesn't show in the timeline for everyone. But hello to Junior, how are you? I was going to ask you, who, if any, what player do you think is under the most pressure for this next season? There you go. I can definitely burn on the grill. Definitely, at least what my grandmother used to say. But and burn means good. That it does mean good. McAllister is under the most pressure, says Fred Armchair Supporter. That's a good shout. That's a viable shout. Junior says VVD and Cody. Okay, those are two excellent shouts as well. Who do you think is under the most pressure for next season? Because I have my answer. But I'd love to see what your answers are. And obviously, I'm saying player, not coach. Player. Yeah, there you go. Shout out to Oliver, by the way. How are you doing, my red brother? Wirtz and Isak. AR, you're on the same wavelength. I am right there with you. I would even tend to lean more so towards Isak. Now, I only wish and hope and pray that Isak will get his rhythm and his form, maybe in the World Cup, and bring that back with him to the league. Fantastic. I am all for it. But more so, I need Isak to be the type of center forward he was at Newcastle. I need Isak to not be looked at as being a player that's going to be asked to do things that we ask sometimes Jota or maybe Nunez, who were more so than Jota, but all the same, they were more center forwards as opposed to false nines. I'm making the point that I need him to be a poacher style forward, someone that presses that back line and is willing to go for through balls to him. And that's what we very much need. I think the player under the biggest spotlight this preseason has to be Alexander Isak. And you can argue Florian Wirtz is a close second. I'm not disputing that, in my opinion. VVD, Cody, McAllister, all good shouts for numerous reasons. But I just think that, considering what we spent for Isak, what we got in return for Isak, and what this system orchestrates makes us have to say, is this guy going to fit with our team? And it's exactly why I would go, mano y mano versus Matt or Cal, all of which I respect and I appreciate. They're very knowledgeable people on sport, and this is nothing. Everyone's opinions can be their own, and sometimes even the best get it wrong. But I know quite a bit. I would argue with them, and I would argue with others as well, even on our own channel, about how we have never in the past 5, 6, 7 years been a team that feeds our center forward. Isak is not a center forward that is going to be some R9 style creative. You just give him the ball, he can take it from the half circle all the way to goal on his own if necessary. I think it's why when we saw Lucho play last season, it's the reason why he, despite not being a center forward per se, was capable of being and playing well. And that's because he has the ability to not only press, he had the ability to have a relentless engine. He had the ability to be able to dribble and create on his own. We spent a historic fee on this guy. Injuries have completely destroyed his first season. There's been no rhythm that he's gotten in his game. He's got no chemistry with his teammates. He's gotten no consistency with his availability, much less his form. And now, next season, I think it has to be all or nothing with Isak. I'm kind of sick and tired of hearing, oh, if we only had a more technical center forward. It doesn't matter if you put R9 there, really, most likely, unless you feed the center forward the ball and he has the ability to transgress and either make his own opportunities, much like Jota, much like Nunez were. That's why they were on the top of creations, not necessarily goal scorers, but certainly creating goal scoring opportunities for either themselves or their teammates. If you're not going to have that, then you have basically a center forward of paperweight. And I think, I speak for a lot of us, we are done with the give it time. Let him adjust. He doesn't need to adjust to Premier League. He played in the Premier League. Let him adjust to Liverpool. No. There's none of that. We must expect a level of excellence. Otherwise, you are accepting substandards. You're accepting poor quality. And that's not Liverpool. There is another player. Now, I'm going to ask you this. There was another player that I had in my list, and I'm going to ask you if you agree with this or not. Because the talent is obvious for this player. But could you say possibly, and especially for some players, the sophomore year is the most difficult to deal with, because that sophomore year is the year when teams have already seen a year of how you play. They're created an idea of how to defend against you and no other things. Would you say that if you're not saying Isak has the most pressure, could you possibly say that Rio Ngumoha has the most pressure sitting on his shoulders. He's one of the few players who actually injected excitement late into the season. He was fearless. He was aggressive. He was direct. He was willing to attack defenders. Um, Liverpool supporters, hands down, were all in on bringing this player into our starting lineup for numerous games. He reminded us of the old Liverpool in the sense of an attacking Liverpool. He had intensity, he had bravery, emotion, creativity. We all have to protect Rio properly this next season. And that's why I brought up the whole thing of if we go for Barcola and we have Cody Gakpo, does that maybe regress his progression, or does that maybe stunt his growth because we're not going to be capable of giving him the minutes that he might very well deserve more some of. But could you say that that might be a lot of pressure to put on a young lad like himself? And honestly, I could say that he could have pressure for a different reason, basically, is what I'm saying. I'm not saying pressure in the sense of he has to commit or he's gone or something along those lines. I'm just saying that there's a lot of pressure on him because expectations are very high for this young man. I agree. Lone Sheep is saying we begged for Rio to come on because we were not getting anything from Cody. I agree with that somewhat. But we also looked at what Rio offered and said to ourselves, yes, I like what I see. Let me have more of that for our attack. So I thought maybe it's an outside shout, you know. I did have obviously though Isak and hands down Florian Wirtz. I think him and Isak I think have the most pressure on them because obviously the amount of money we spent on them, the expectations that were put on them, we don't have the luxury to sign a player like Manchester City and have him sit the bench or not be an automatic impact player. And that transformation has to happen now. So just asking those questions. We should not be depending on a 17-year-old. He needs time to develop. I understand that. Lone Sheep, I understand that. But tell that story to Barcelona. Say that to Barcelona. Because I could argue that without their 17-year-old phenom, Barcelona might not be in the position that they are currently today. That's how much of an impact that 17-year-old has had for Barcelona. I'd be willing to argue that. And this is not me saying that I think Rio and Yamal are the same player or same caliber. I'm just trying to get across that injuries will happen to any player. So, and I'm not all for the whole, oh, he's 17. You don't want to have the Michael Owen tract of a career happen for him. But what I am saying is that as a young player, this could be an opportunity to create and further develop an absolute superstar. And that's a lot of pressure. But sometimes, as they say, pressure makes diamonds. So, all right. Now, with that said, let's talk about the next generation. Let's talk about the next generation. The next generation, obviously, is Liverpool are now aggressively, and I do mean aggressively, targeting elite youth out there. And I like it. I like that we are going for young talent so that we can create a good core nucleus of players that will play a lengthy amount of time for us, as opposed to let's go out there and get, Gerard Bowen is a good player, someone I would like. I said I'm very open. If not, I have actually campaigned to bring him in this past January. I wanted to see him join our team, but you're only going to get 2, maybe at most 3, but 2 years out of Bowen at the level that we need to get out of him. With that said, we need young talent that we can build and create a real core around. And Liverpool are now aggressively targeting some very, very heightened and incredibly important names. Everyone knows the young Spurs defender that I'm very high on. I don't know if we're going to necessarily go for him or not, but I would love to see us do that, to bring in another defender. There is a player in Samuel Martinez. Shout out to one of my favorite countries in the world, Colombia. And that is a youthful player that has obviously been very influential and in his homeland, but is coveted as one of the wonder kids of South America right now, which I am fantastically happy to hear us being associated with this player. And then there is a guy named Kennet Eichhorn. Now, this name you might not have heard of unless you're maybe in Germany. These are not random scouting links. These are targeted structural investments, I'll call them, into our next cycle of talented players to bring into the club. And I think that this young man, Eichhorn, is someone that we're going to be very, very happy if we can figure out a way to keep teams outside of England from doing what England clubs cannot do. Now, let me explain what I'm trying to get at. Basically, because of Brexit, there's complications around signing this player. These Brexit complications around Eichhorn perfectly expose how much recruitment has changed for English clubs. Because, for instance, we went out and got Samuel Martinez, 17 as well. And someone might be saying, well, how can we do that? How can we go for Samuel Martinez? And that's because Samuel Martinez is going to remain in South America until he's 18. And the problem with Eichhorn is that he is unbelievably mature for his age. Deep line midfielder. We all want that type of player to bring into this club. But he's only 16, actually. So that means not only do we have to wait for him to turn 18, it means that we have to wait a year and a half until he does. And I know Liverpool literally cannot sign him immediately. We can't sign him and loan him out or something along those lines. We have to wait technically until either he turns 18 or we have an agreement that he's willing to wait until he turns 18 and get a pre-signed agreement that ends up getting us the player committed to coming to Liverpool. But because of pre-Brexit, Liverpool likely secured that deal early and cheaply. But now, because of Brexit, other European clubs will have a better opportunity of signing this young, promising player. So keep your mind on that. Keep your eye on that. Shout out to Dara. I hope that you're maintaining in this heat. Hope that you're well, my Arizonan brother. Last but not least, I wanted to say shout out to a player that maybe some people won't give the same shout to, primarily because this player has been not necessarily a mainstay in our team. But shout out to Rhys Williams. Rhys Williams will be leaving the team. I think why it is possibly more of I won't call it an emotional thing for me, but more so why I'm remarking the way I am about it is because I think he's not a cult hero. Let's not go as far as to say cult hero. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. But he's why I'm bringing him up is because Rhys Williams is a player, along with Nat Phillips, who absolutely were a difference maker in us getting to Europe. You could say maybe he represents one of those cult Liverpool stories. Maybe is better put. But he was thrown into chaos during our injury period, an injury crisis. He was forced into some, I'd say, impossible situations for a player at his age, all things considered, and connected to his own abilities as well, you could say. But he gave everything, people. I think that's why I liked Rhys Williams. That's why I always gave him credit. That's why I always liked the fact that he was willing to commit and be a loyal servant to the club. Hopefully supporters remember that as this player leaves the club. Not every Liverpool story is about stardom or superstardom. Some, to me at least, I'm the football romantic, I get that. But to me, some are about sacrifice. Some are about how you can make contributions and not always be the next big phenom on a team. And I think Rhys Williams is a player I give respect and I give appreciation to, and I hope that you guys do the same. I know to each is their own, and to everyone, you can do as you please when it comes to showing some love towards Rhys. But 16 years I saw he's played as a Liverpool, not necessarily a Liverpool first teamer, obviously, but he's been a part of our organization for more than 16 years. It's one of those things, Brian. It's nice to see when a player does give a shout or does get some shown appreciation from our fan base, and I hope that you guys do show them such. But this next generation matters enormously. Obviously, Liverpool cannot simply buy their way out of every problem. We are not Manchester City 115. We are a team that develops talent. We're a team that turns players that maybe other teams have given up on into superstars. And We need identity, we need hunger, and we need young players that will be committed and loving of this badge. So there we have it. Let me get this up into let me do this too. Hold on 1 second. I have some graphics that I've made. Here it is. All right. So, what is what I'm calling the American reset? What the American reset is this. Liverpool now head into preseason needing more than obviously preparation. We're needing some conjuncture of a team that understands not only its role, but also has some synergy amongst it. We need real rehabilitation. We need emotionality. We need physicality. We need tacticality. I guess I think that's a word. And honestly, the U.S. tour may become one of the most important preseason tours in the last 5, maybe 10 years. We will see Liverpool go to Sunderland in Nashville or face off against Sunderland in Nashville. We will see them play Wrexham in New York City, a.k.a. the Big Apple. And we will see Leeds in Chicago. Should be interesting. I'm leaning towards going to the Leeds game in Chicago. I've never been to Chicago. I have a couple connections to Chicago. So I'm looking at possibly going there. I don't know if my brother and I are going to do, if my brother is down, I'm going to Leeds without my brother. But if my brother is down to go to New York City, we might do the Wrexham game because I know that he watches he likes the whole Wrexham TV show thing. I don't follow that, but he does. So we're looking at some massive crowds, definite scrutiny, some pressure. It cannot be just a fanfare style preseason. This preseason is going to have a microscope over the top of it. I mean, you're going to see, are we exciting? Are we back? Are we doing stuff, the right way? Yeah. The flight to New York City is a long flight. Even the flight to Chicago isn't a short flight either.
Yeah, Chicago's far from you, yeah.
But I figured if there's any reason why to go to Chicago, it would be to go see Liverpool play. So
over the pizza.
Deep dish, yeah.
The deep dish style.
Yeah. Proper. How are you doing today, JK?
I'm good, bro. What you saying?
Just chopping it up with the fandom here.
Bless up, right down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just doing our thing. Looking at this. If you guys could go to one game, which game would you recommend? What do you think is going to be a good game to go to?
I think Wrexham Yankee Stadium, bro.
Yeah.
That's the one for me.
Yes, that's the reason why my brother, I think, might, because he, like I said, he likes Wrexham, or he likes the show Wrexham, the Wrexham show he watches. So maybe he'd be willing to go and do that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. You get to see him. Maybe I don't know if we'll have any new signings by then or new manager even. But out of the three, I think Wrexham would be cool to watch. Hi to Dara as well, and Beans on Toast. Hope you're cool, guys. Elior as well. Red Armchair, everyone.
Yeah, I don't think that Ted Lasso and his squad isn't coming to the U.S., so it's not. That's the only other show I think he watches when it comes to football. So
yeah.
So yeah. But I think that he might go. We might be able to bring my nephew with us this time around to watch the team. I'm trying to coerce my nephew into becoming a Liverpool Red. So
Yeah, get him a top. That's the one. I think
that's
when
the
you get
way.
them a
That's
top,
the
they
way to
think,
do
oh,
it.
they're special. You know what I mean?
There you go. All right, I'll look into doing that then. I definitely will do that. Definitely. Yeah. So all right. Yeah, Flanders definitely. I haven't watched that show, Ted Lasso. I need to watch it. It's funny. I heard it's pretty funny. I've seen segments on YouTube, but I have never seen the actual one. Get him the new home jersey. Okay. All right, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'm very interested to see what happens with the whole situation that we have when it comes to preseason. But there's the preseason. I gave the dates. Those are the locations. That's the U.S. Summer Tour for those that are wondering. And those are the fixtures that we have. Okay, so this final segment that I have here is one where this final segment is one that I think is poignant, I guess you could say, because I heard our coach say that when he is asked to define this season, he said injuries. And I personally don't think that injuries define a season, or at least didn't define this season. I think the structure did, and how you overcome injuries is the bigger question. We've had injuries every season. We have injuries. We've had massive injuries to important players. And still we overcame. But we have to think about the fact that I think one of the biggest debates around Liverpool this season has been the injury excuse. Let's be honest, that's been a massive thing when it comes to this club. And honestly, I think that this conversation has gotten completely out of control because after the Brentford match, Arne Slot described the entire season in one word. He said injury. And the problem with that narrative is that at the start of the season, Slot himself openly said he loved the size of our team. He loved the squad size. He spoke about trusting youth. So he meant Rio. He meant Trainioni, someone that I've been calling out this entire season, pretty much, on and off at least, that I wanted to see more of. Shout out to Nalante, by the way, who possibly called for Trey to get even more time than I've been calling out for.
Mm-hmm.
He spoke about.
I think he did well when he came on the other day. Mm-hmm.
I thought he did excellent. I think that Trainioni's got some real quality skills.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some skills.
Good passer of the ball.
He's a good passer of the ball. Very good on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
we'll see more of him soon. I think.
Yes, we will. We will. We have to, I think, or we should. But who knows with this coach?
We've got to push. We've got to push the youth players through. For me, when a club can produce players from the youth system, it shows a healthy club.
Mm-hmm.
But we seen last season that Arne Slot didn't really keep hold of any youth sort of players, really. He got rid of a lot of youth players. We don't know if them guys would have made it with us. We're not sure, you know. But yeah. I think out of a lot of them, the laddie went to France to play, Morton.
Yeah.
He's the one who sort of Yeah, he's done pretty well out of all the young players, you know.
Where
Ponce's
does
done well.
wait, hold on. What position does Tyler Morton play? Remind me.
Is it 6, is it, or an 8? One of the two.
It would be the first.
Yeah. But does he look... Yeah, go on.
He's a 6. Wait, where does Kwanzaa play? What position does Kwanzaa play?
A position where we needed someone all season. You know? We got rid of both of them two guys.
Yep. 2 very talented youth academy players that our coach said, no, thank you. It hurts. It hurts sometimes when you really put it to thought. But I just think injuries cannot suddenly become the entire explanation afterwards. When you've been saying from the very beginning, oh, we have a very deep squad, and I like the fact that we have a number of players that are talented, with experience and talented with the fact of just talent alone. And then also we have young players that we're going to help develop and get time into this season for. And then you go and at the end of end of the day, you go, well, injury was the reason why we had the season we had.
Look, bro, when you look at the injuries, Alisson missed, say, 50-60% of the season. Isak and Ekatike, big chunks of the season missed. Who else is there? McAllister, all season. Gomez in and out. And that's about it, I would say, when you look at it. Gapco, yeah, he was injured a little bit as well. Salah a little bit, but not. Yeah, we've had a few injuries, you know what I mean?
No, Leone, but I mean, how much was Leone going to play as a positional player in this team?
That's the thing. This manager didn't look like that guy who's going to give these guys a chance.
Yeah.
He's very stuck in his ways about keeping the same 11 and keeping a tight squad and all that. Bruv, when you're trying to rustle up a little dinner and you've got a few ingredients, yeah, it'll work. But if you've got a big pantry full of this herb and this spice or whatever, it's going to give you a bit more variation in your dish. And that's how I see football, bro. In this day and age of football, a lot of injuries happen not by getting a tackle, not by a nasty tackle. Very rarely, it's like you're running and all of a sudden you make a quick turn and your knee stayed there. Same as when Conor Bradley got injured, bro. He did it himself. It was a weird clearance and it just ended up like that. So that's part and parcel of the game. Ekatike, Frimpong, all been injured all season. So we've had a really rough...
I get that there were injuries, but to say Bradley missing hurts, I get that. I'm not saying it didn't. I think Connor Bradley could and should be our starting right back. If he was available this season, I would have preferred to see him as our right back, even over Frimpong. Isak missing matters because that's who we were going to be putting a lot of our stock in being the tip of the spear for our offense. I get that. Wirtz, Salah, Ekatike, they all had some damaged momentum when it comes to the injuries that they had to deal with. But compared to what Klopp survived, considering we're talking about moments when we were without, Matip, without Joe Gomez, without Virgil van Dijk, when you talk about seasons where we've had Mohamed Salah, we've had Trent Alexander-Arnold, we've had, very, very important players injured and unavailable, we still sustained quality runs at the end of the season, and we still looked like a team that, okay, get through these injuries, next season, start again, and maybe you build upon the end of the season that you saw some real promise from, you know. And all well and good, we usually ended up with some type of silverware at the end of the season for the most part. But this team looks emotionally disconnected, even with talent available. And I think the difference is, I mean, you can say an easy shield for teams could be, oh, it's, just blame it on injuries. But all teams go through injuries. All teams. There were times when Manchester City didn't have Holland. There were times when Saliba wasn't available, or even better, Saka wasn't available for Arsenal. These are important players, and they still put out performances that at least were warranting something. And I think the difference between injuries exposing problems and injuries creating them is night and day. It's chalk and cheese. Like, as in, the bigger issue was structure with this team. The midfield balance was poorly constructed, whether it's because of the fitness of our players or the likes, but it was poorly balanced. We got the midfield completely wrong this season. The attack looked like it lacked chemistry, because now all of a sudden you don't know who's playing center forward. You don't know if Mohamed Salah is supposed to be the main guy or if he's just now a supporting character. Okay. This team looked physically drained from its tactical approach. We looked like a coach that didn't understand how to manage minutes and manage egos in the locker room. It's not simply injuries. That's why when he said injury, I'm like, look in the mirror and just say coaching. I would have given him more props if he had just said has nothing to do with injuries. It comes down to, I've got to be a better coach. I can't just keep dropping excuses after excuse after excuse and then say, deal with it. I'm still Arne Slot. I'm infallible. I know he hasn't necessarily said that. But what I am saying is, take on accountability. Those boos should resonate because they are very much symbolic of our season. I think if anything, Slot even sitting down during the guard of honor for those players was telling. Some might say he didn't want to be a part of the narrative and this and that. Either if he sat or if he got up, he was going to be a part of the narrative. Him sitting is a negative aspect of it. Get your bottom up and give these players the proper due they deserve. Are you completely over the moon with how they've regarded you, or completely over the moon with how they've persevered with you or for you? Maybe not. But again, recognize the fact that despite the fact that you are our coach, long before you were, Liverpool existed. Long after you leave this team, Liverpool will exist. And you've got to recognize that the components that make Liverpool up, you included in those components, should show the proper respect for our legends. Get up. That's why I think we are emotionally disconnected from this project and from this coach, and why most of us don't understand why this coach is being given another opportunity to do what he needs to do. Because I've read in I think it was the Telegraph, I want to say, that Slot may have been that he was going to be fired or may have been fired if we did not get Champions League qualification. I think that statement is an understatement, because it can tell you I understand how close the season came to complete a catastrophe, which I think it still was. But the headline I'm keep seeing is Slot is walking the finest of lines. Next season, there are no excuses left, no transition protection left, no honeymoon left. Why I think that statement of him getting Champions League is so poorly propositioned, considering this Champions League berth was not a result of Arne Slot's ability of coaching us to this Champions League. It was the inability of the teams in front of us or behind us to do what they needed to do, and they gifted us this place. And let's keep it 100. Everyone knows how I hate that whole 5th place, 3rd place Klopp crap. Fifth place during the Klopp era was Europa. We're just fortunate that we're in an era of Champions League football that 5th place and the coefficient of the Premier League gets you an extra placement in an expanded Champions League. Again, context. The Slot versus Salah civil war has finally ended. Most supporters, I think, emotionally sided with the departing legend, myself included. But Salah's final message said everything. The fans, and this is the quote he gave, the fans will not accept anything less than fighting for everything. Mohamed Salah, beyond being an absolutely incredible person and human being, I think certainly embodies what Liverpool Football Club is and should be right now. And that is people that care about the badge. We're nowhere near that standard. 60 points is nowhere near acceptable. We are 24 points off of the bar that we set last season, with quote unquote 450 million pounds worth of expenditures and transfers, and with quote unquote more talented players and quote unquote more players suited to this coach. You look at that, we finished the season lower than every, I'm gonna repeat that for those 5th and 3rd place Klopp sayers out there, we finished lower than any Jurgen Klopp team. We finished with a lower point total than any Jurgen Klopp team after winning the league. So don't miss me with that 5th and 3rd place crap. We finished lower than Rodgers' best years. We're barely above Hodgson's territory. And that should terrify a lot of us. Liverpool are not supposed to drift into mediocrity. We're supposed to compete for greatness, and we're supposed to put the pressure on any team that seemingly to stand up against what is this Liverbird. So earlier I said pressure on players. I'm going to expand that to this has to be pressure not only on Arne Slot, but it has to be pressure on Richard Hughes. It has to be pressure on Michael Edwards. FSG are going to be the owners of this club regardless of whether we win or lose, but all the same, it has to be pressure on FSG. Every single player who remains next season has to recognize that we had a concerted effort that has to be performed in us to establish those standards again. And I'll say this out loud. There are no excuses. None. You are on, I think you've already, in my opinion, you've already passed that level, past that line of reasons why you should not be continuing on, whether it's a sporting director, whether it's the coach. But if you're going to say you give him another shot, you give him another chance, there is no margin of error going forward.
I think, look, when you look at Hughes and that, he came in, picked Slot, whoever picked Slot, brought him in, he won a Premier League title. So that's one plus point. He brought all that talent in. Wirtz, Isak, Ekatike, Kirkes, Frimpong, all for me top signings. So that's another plus point. What Slot did this season has taken away all what he's done in the last 2 plus points. So you've got to look at it like that. You can't really blame Hughes right now. The only thing you can blame Hughes for now is that you're letting this mash up season carrying on. It was like, remember I said pre-Man City PSG game, we can't have this manager in charge for them games. And now you know the reason why. We lost 8-0 on aggregate. We didn't score 1 goal in them 3 games. I'll keep going to them 3 games. That was our season all in 1 week. FA Cup and Champions League. We did it again last season. We fucked it up. Newcastle and PSG. So, like, come on. I told you, I've been saying it since day one. When this guy was at Feyenoord, I didn't like the way he told everyone that he's going to be the new Liverpool manager. I was like, yo, who's this joker?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't like that attitude he had. Oh, I'm going to be the Liverpool manager. Bro, you're still at Feyenoord. They're still paying your rent and your car and your petrol, your food, everything, paying for it. And you're coming on TV saying this. Wait until the season's over and then say it. Then I'll respect you more. And he's come into the club and instead of embracing the history in that way of where Jurgen Klopp did it, to realise where he's at, which club is he at in the world. He didn't do his own work. So that's another thing. And in the way he's made top world-class players deteriorate. Wirtz coming off the bench the other day looked like the brother hasn't slept for weeks and hasn't eaten. Okay? When you run a healthy squad and you're under a healthy manager, your manager makes sure you walk on that pitch with a big smile and grit and a bit of fight in you, and you think, well, not, I'm going to get the fucking winner here. So there's a lot, bro. I can write a letter to John Henry and Edwards and tell them the points why we should get rid of him. It's past that. Thin ice is done, bro. Forget the thin ice. That was done that time ago. Mm-hmm. So Ruben Emron, look, man, this is that's the era of football management now, Helio, where the days of Ancelotti, Pep, Klopp and all these guys are gone. Guys you know who are going to come in and do a job. Now you've got guys who are starting their journey on football management and they have to start somewhere. Problem is, these fuckers are starting at big jobs. Mm-hmm. Like, they'll have one job, bang, they're at the top, they're at Chelsea, they're at United. But that's how desperate these fucking clubs are to get a decent manager in, bro. That's why they're getting the chances. Arne Slot, bro. Not one Liverpool fan knew who Arne Slot was when his name was said he's going to be the new Liverpool manager. We were like, who?
Yeah.
He always the manager of Feyenoord.
I think we were very close. We were very close to getting the Ruben Amorim, just as Tyler was saying, though. I mean, Ruben Amorim pretty much set his own downturn, or downfall by trying to use us as a stepping stone to possibly get the Manchester United job or something along those lines. By scheduling other. I think he scheduled other. Visits or something on those lines. But I mean, like,
West Ham or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, And it's like, what are you doing scheduling West Ham? What are you doing? He's like,
I think that was just a little ploy to push the United job on and say, look, West Ham are interested. You better sign me up before they do. That's what
okay.
That's what happens in the
I would
world,
have been
bro.
like, go ahead, how about
You know, but look,
go to West Ham.
You know, like, look how many people we know who love football, bro. I wish all of us did a bit more concerning football in our lives. That some of us got them jobs. Helio, for example, Red Armchair, whoever, you know, these type of guys are the type of guys you want in football who know their football. And you got people like fucking Arne Slot walking into Anfield, bruv. And he's getting paid a top whack, 6.5, 7 million a year. Nice house, nice cars, whatever. He's got it. Fair play to him. He got that. He got the Premier League title and that. But he don't deserve that. Like what he gave us this season has just destroyed everything that Klopp built in 10 years, bro. And the problem is, and the thing is, it isn't. The problem isn't as big as people think, because one guy can change it all. A guy who just comes in and improves the world-class players we've already got. That's for me a manager. No manager should make a player worse than what he was before you signed him. If a manager's doing that, okay, he's the wrong guy for the club. Simple as. That's another reason what I would say to John Henry. There you go, bro. Jurgen Klopp took a guy from Italy, 30-odd million, Salah, turned him into probably the best player in the world for a while. Andy Robertson, 7 million from down the pub. You and your guys talk, oh, I got a player for you, bro. He's a Sunday League player. Andy Robertson, 7 million. Oh, fucking that's cheap. We'll have him. Oh, bang. He's the best left back in the world a couple of years later. That's what you call a manager. Frimpong comes to Liverpool, where we had high expectations of him, and Kirkes as well. And them two fullbacks didn't do nothing all season, really. Kirkes found his feet eventually, but all in all, not a great season from the both of them. Why? Arne Slot couldn't work it out how he wanted to play him. For me, Frimpong at Leverkusen was given a free ticket. He was up and down that flank, and he never pulled his hamstrings. Comes to fucking Liverpool, what happens? Arne Slot, hold your horses, lad. Don't cross the halfway line. Only if this guy does that and this, that, and that. So you can't do that free roll you had at Leverkusen no more. What's happened? 3 hamstring injuries. Same as Robertson. Last season, worst season of Andy Robertson's career with us at Liverpool. Why? Slot comes in, tells Andy Robertson, hold your horses, don't cross the halfway line, stay in your left back position, blah, blah, blah. I can keep on going. Bro, I should be a lawyer on the reasons why we shouldn't keep Slot.
Well, I'll tell you this.
Comes in the team as sub, smashes it, comes on a sub, smashes it, comes on a sub, smashes it, does well. He's buzzing now. And what happens? We didn't see him for 2 months. Didn't play him. So you know what, Chiesa, start this game now, you're ready. Bang. Didn't do it. And what happened? Chiesa, every time he came on for the last 2-3 months or whatever, bro, useless. It was a waste of time him coming on the pitch. He weren't the same Chiesa we had at the start of the season. That's the manager's fault.
Well, I'll tell you this. Shout out to those that joined us tonight. Big up to JK for joining us late, but also joining us with some real value comments, I'd say.
I like, what's his name's Mr. Al-Shamiri's comment. I don't care who they are. Whenever English teams play in Europe, I want them to win.
Right.
And then at the end he says, come on, Palace and PSG. Wicked.
Right. I like it. I like
that one.
Yeah. Look, as always, up the Reds. Of course, I'm going to give you your moment of Red Zen here. I thought I saw this. I had to double check to make sure it was legit, but it is apparently. So I got to find out where this mural is because I want to go take a picture by it. The next time I'm in Los Angeles, I will. But I wanted to share this. So Jurgen Klopp posted this for Salah. He said, even here on the streets of Los Angeles, your impact is unforgettable, Mo. He said, America is always ready to celebrate legends, and you were the finest. Thank you for everything, King. So,
wow. Jurgen looks healthy.
He does. I had to check on this. I asked to make sure it was legit, or at least I asked Grok if it was legit. He said yes, it was. So
it's a Grok original.
yeah, I know. Hopefully Grok's not putting me out there.
You know what I mean, bro?
I don't care. If that mural doesn't exist, I'll try to commission a mural to make it exist because it deserves it. But shout out to our living legend, 2 living legends actually. Let's say it that way. In Klopp.
Where do you reckon Salah's going to go now then? Where do you reckon Salah's going to go now?
I think
Barcelona, man. I've got a funny feeling.
I said that he would go to La Liga. I was thinking that if things didn't work out, he might go to Real Madrid or maybe Barcelona, like you suggested. And people are like, oh well, they won't be able to pay his. Real Madrid can pay his wages, but like Barcelona wouldn't be able to pay his wages. I don't think that's the case. I think Barcelona would have to maybe take a little bit of a haircut on taking his wages on, but I think that he would still be willing to take a little bit of a pay decrease to play for a team like Barcelona that could end up bringing him not only a berth into Champions League, but also a berth to a berth into maybe a Champions League final. Who knows? So that's what it is. People, we're gonna rock and roll out of here. With the Reds, like I said, I hope that everyone has it might be closing in on a Wednesday for some, but I have another episode locked and loaded and ready for tomorrow. Actually, I have one for tomorrow and for Thursday already set up. So please do join us tomorrow. Appreciate everyone that did join us today. If you're joining us on the replay, hit that comment button or put in the comment, hit that like button, subscribe, all that jazz. I hope that everyone has a fantastic rest of their evening, if not morning or afternoon, whichever portion of the day you are in. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care. And as I'll say for JK too, up the Reds. Peace.
Peace.